What's up, everyone, and welcome to FaceTurn with Candace Cordelia. I am your host, Candace Cordelia. For today's episode, I have the one and only Madi Wrenkowski. You might have seen her on not just Mission Pro Wrestling, but All Elite Wrestling and a bunch of different promotions all over the South and the Southeast. So I am so excited to be able to introduce her to our PWI fan base and family. Welcome, Madi, to the show. It is awesome to have you.
It's nice to be here. I'm excited.
Yes, likewise. You know, it's been such a joy seeing how things have progressed for you with Mission Pro Wrestling, but also with everything else you're doing on television. And when I was just doing my research on you, I realized that you haven't been in the business for that long. You know, you're really getting it in, so, which is amazing. So what I want to ask you first really is, how did you get into wrestling? You know, was this something that you saw yourself doing as a child, or was it more of a, you know, getting older and seeing things on television and wanting to be a part of the fold?
Yeah. So I actually got into wrestling through my brother. My father is one of those people who just like click through channels on like commercials to what he's watching. And my brother was there and he just happened to catch a glimpse of China. So he immediately ran upstairs, tried to find that channel. And then from there, he just started watching wrestling. So me, I am the youngest of all my siblings. So inherently, I am my brother's brother since all he had is sisters. So through that, I kind of just started watching wrestling with him. I saw Lita and Team Extreme, the Hardy Boys, and it was just kind of over at that point. I was drawn in by them, and just from there, it kind of took off. We would just watch it, and I got swanton bombed a couple times. His favorite thing was to put me in Jazz's finisher, which he can't say the first word, but it's a clamp, the B word clamp. So I definitely got stretched a lot as a child. So wow. I think it's kind of what started it all.
Oh my goodness. And it's kind of full circle because from what I understand, one of your first, if not the first professional matches that you had was with Jazz for Mission Pro. So what was that like, being in the ring with Jazz and having this really, you know, come full circle moment?
Yeah, it was surreal because Jazz at that time was one of, and still is, one of my trainers and mentors. So to be able to not only have her like in my everyday life, to be able to wrestle against her on my first independent match, it was terrifying because this was the woman that we would watch on the television. Like she was the baddest. Like she was terrifying to me as a child because she was just so like intense. And then to be standing across the ring from her, it was like all my childhood fears. And then of course, as soon as the bell rings, they start chanting, "Jazz is going to kill you." And like, I didn't have anything like to retort because like I knew she was. Like I believed it too. I was about to start chanting with them because you don't bet against Jazz. You just don't.
Exactly. But that is so amazing that was your first match, and specifically with Mission Pro. You know, we're doing this interview for Mission Pro Week here at PWI. You guys have your last Mission Pro show of the year on December 11th. And so we can expect to see I'm thinking a lot of surprises and a lot of things in store. What is it like being a part of Mission Pro Wrestling on the roster?
Yeah. So again, super thankful to have had my first independent match with them, and they put me against Jazz. But then when they revamped and kind of went to that all-female promotion, that kind of, I feel like, set a different tone in the independent wrestling world. To have someone who has a platform like Thunder Rosa, especially the platform that she has now, take an interest and invest in, like you said, the younger wrestlers, because the environment I feel like that she grew up in wasn't necessarily like the best as far as wrestling goes. Like women weren't treated fairly, and that's what she's trying to change. So as soon as I heard that she started that women's promotion, I was like, yeah, I'm sending my email in. Like the first day it came out, I was like, hey, I got to be a part of this. So I was very fortunate to have had that first show under my belt. But yeah, I knew I had to be a part of it because I knew if Thunder was involved, like she was going to make that difference. She was going to put women on the map, and she was going to share her platform, which I think is something that you don't see a lot of, especially for new girls getting started. Like, veterans don't take an interest all the time. They're like, oh yeah, good job. And then what? But she's actually like giving back to us. She doesn't want us to make the same mistakes. She wants us to learn from everything that she had to go through, which is nice because like no one wants to screw up any type of chance. Like, I don't know. I feel like in wrestling, there's like unwritten rules that you're not necessarily told in this business. And you don't really learn about them until you mess them up. So it's nice to have someone who's been through it and who's very successful kind of guide you and teach you how to do it, and not just wrestling, but like the business aspect of it, like bookings and how you like sell your merchandise and just things like that.
Those are all very interesting points that you touch upon, because specifically for you, you know, your career has really gone to significant heights during a pandemic, right? So you've been able to be on television for All Elite Wrestling, for example, and to do all these shows with Mission Pro during a very hectic and heavy time, you know, in human history. Did you feel some sort of added pressure, you know, with everything happening externally, to being able to keep yourself centered and doing what you have to do in the ring?
Yes, of course. So for me personally, I feel like one of the matches that kind of started like the upward rise to my career was the first Mission Pro show back. When I went against Red Velvet, I would say she is one of like the first opponents on my career list that kind of pushed me and challenged me. And I feel like that match kind of like showed people that I wasn't just this like rookie. Like we just came back from the pandemic, and like I brought this to the table. And with that, Mission and Thunder was able to push me to that door of AEW and kind of like knock on it. But so like my first time being there, like, yeah, Thunder Rosa definitely helped me get there. But that added pressure, like, okay, I'm not only representing myself, I'm representing Mission Pro, and they definitely put that over on commentary at AEW, and I'm representing Thunder Rosa. Like, she is my mentor. And so to have all of that, plus you're going to go wrestle at AEW, and you know, like thousands of people that you've never even encountered in your life are going to be watching on YouTube. It was a lot of pressure. And I guess, you know what they say, like a lot of pressure, like that's what makes diamonds. Not saying that I'm a diamond, but I'm also not saying that I'm not.
You know, that you got to bet on yourself, right? You really have to.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that Mission Pro definitely was that stepping stone, because at Mission, it is like a whole nother level of independence. Like, they don't just treat it like you're at an independence. Their production level is very high. Like, you have that hard cam, you have those roaming cams, and they function like you're on television. So I was very fortunate to have, again, Thunder to lay that basis down, so that when I did go to AEW and there's no crowd, like I still know how to present myself to the fans on the outside, like the ones who are in different states, not physically there. So I think it was a lot of pressure, but I think that I was set up. I had the foundation to succeed.
Yeah. And what was that like, you know, being in Jacksonville at Daly's Place with no crowds and having these really cool matches? I mean, was it jarring to you at first, where it was like, I'm just in front of no one? Or did it get to a point where you were really comfortable with it, and then getting back to crowds, it was like, wait, there's a lot of people here. What do I do in this situation?
So in a weird way, I was kind of fortunate because right before the pandemic hit, I had only been wrestling like 4 months. So I didn't really have that like huge like crowd level behind me. So getting to perform and make myself have to like perform like I'm performing in front of a crowd like at AEW, like you still have to have those same levels or facials or whatnot. So I was very fortunate in the sense that I wasn't used to like crowds at that time. like I was very new. So when I was in the ring at that point, it was just me and my opponent. Like the crowd was never a factor. So to go to AEW and not have a crowd, but instead you have other wrestlers, the AEW roster around the ring, like that was terrifying because it's like, okay, like these people who don't know me, who don't know anything about wrestling, like they're not the ones there. No, it's the people who do know wrestling and the people who have been doing this. So I was like, okay. Like pull it together. It's fine. It's only like Matt Hardy and everyone else watching you. Like what could go wrong?
Yes. And I'm glad you segued for me with Matt Hardy, because my next question really was going to be also about what was it like meeting him, if you did get to meet him, because him and his brother were such a big part of your formative years in watching wrestling.
Yeah, it's surreal. It's surreal to see all of the people back there. You're like, oh yeah, I've seen them on TV, seen them on TV. Yeah, I've seen them on TV. So it was very surreal, especially meeting Matt Hardy. And he's incredibly nice. And it's crazy, like how nice these people are. Like, not that you expect them to be egotistical or anything, but just I think the business has changed. Because when I first started wrestling, it was kind of like, stay to yourself. Like, it wasn't like a thing to be able to just go up and talk to people. But at AEW, like, that's what they want you to do. They want you to talk to the veterans there. They want you to talk to the people who've been through it. Like, it's a very friendly environment back there. And so I just remember this one time, I was doing a signing in New Jersey and Matt Hardy was also there. And I just came up in the elevator. I was going back to my room and the elevator opened and he was there. And he's like, hey, Maddie, what's up? And I was like, he knows my name. So of course, like, I played it cool. I was like, oh, what's up? Like, how are you? And then like 2 seconds after the doors closed, I called my brother. I was like, guess what? Guess who knows my name? So I fangirled a little bit, but I kept it cool and composed. But it's just wild. It was wild.
I love that. I really love that. And you never know, coming from the perspective of those watching this interview who are fans and even those in the business, it's really nice to hear that there are nice people in wrestling, that there are people that you can talk to and approach. What does your family think about everything that you're experiencing right now?
So initially my mother was hesitant about all of this. My father, he was more like a real sports guy, and he would like constantly argue with my brother and like tell him that wrestling is not real. So since I've been doing this, it's been a whole like 180. They are completely on the opposite side. My brother, of course, has been supportive throughout. He's the one who's constantly like sending me stuff, or like he actually is the one who designs my gear. My mother is now the one who makes it. And my father is probably like the biggest fan that I have. So if you're ever at a show, especially Mission Pro, he's probably the loudest one. And this last Mission Pro show we had at the brewery, obviously you get some people trickling in who are just from the brewery. He informed me that he had a lengthy conversation with someone about how wrestling is real. So it is very nice to see that kind of once you're involved, you have a new respect for this business. Like, my dad, I don't think would have ever said that if I would have not been here, but he's seen me walk away from matches with like bumps, bruises, and breakages. Like, it's real.
Oh, and what's really cool is that you're mentioning it's pretty much kind of like a family business in a way. I mean, I've never heard of, say, someone's sibling designing the gear and then their parent making it. How long does it take for that process to take place from designing to actually making it and, trying it on, seeing what works? And then if it has to go back to the drawing board, then it has to for a second take.
Yeah, it kind of just depends. Definitely at the beginning, it kind of took a little bit longer, and I was told that it was my fault. So I've kind of been cut out of that design process. Apparently my opinions are no longer valid. I get a little bit of input, but a lot of times, like when I go home, I'll show up and they're like, oh, what do you feel about this? And it's already like put together. So that's nice. But it's definitely been a trying time because as that poster you said, like fighting with your family behind you, it's, it's, it's kind of the same thing, just not in the ring. So
that's a trip. And I mean, I would assume that, with family, there's always going to be those times where you get into discussions and fights, I don't know, like you said, I don't know if it's just like Paige and her family, but as we saw in the movie, but family is family, right? And also it seems, speaking of family, that there is a family aspect to Mission Pro Wrestling. I've talked with many of the other women on the roster as well, Thunder Rosa, and everything that each person has told me, it really boils down to this really lovely aspect of Mission Pro being family and really supporting one another and being women-led. What was your first impression when you got to Mission Pro? Was it something that you thought, wow, I didn't know that this was possible in wrestling? Or were you really just kind of like, all right, this is what it is. This is what I'm getting myself into. Let's go.
Yeah. So the first show, I was terrified. Having been in sports throughout my life, I know that girls can be very vicious. Yeah. And everyone who's gone through high school as a female knows that. Girls can be mean. So I was like, oh, cool, an all-girls locker room. I'm terrified. But once I got there and once you experienced the locker room, it was like the craziest thing ever. It was like I was in a different world. Like, these girls are so nice and these girls care about who you are. And so it was weird because, again, they were so forward in sharing information or giving you feedback or anything like that. And you knew it wasn't like malicious. And I think this family level that we have at Mission is purely based on respect. And I think that's why it's such a good family, because we respect one another and we also respect one another to keep each other in line. Like, you're not going to have someone like kind of get out of that line. Like, I know in the wrestling locker rooms, there's sometimes where people are just kind of like go off the rails. Like, here at Mission, we keep you in check. Like, everyone respects each other enough to like not do that. But if there is or whatever, like, we handle it very professionally. Like, we talk to you like we are family. Like, no one ever maliciously comes at anyone. And that just like blew my mind because it's just unheard of. Like, the Foundation Thunder and Holly Dead and La Rosa, these veterans that we have in the locker room have set up, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. And even now, like, you don't see anywhere else.
What was the most valuable advice that you've received from anyone in the locker room, whether it's Thunder Rosa, Holly Dead, anyone that you can share with us?
Ooh. I think probably just not even like just a quote of advice that I've received. But I think that just their constant reiteration that even though we are females, it doesn't mean we have to carry ourselves like the divas did. Like, we're boss females. So like, go in there and be intense and be who you are. And I think that level of intensity that Mission Pro shows bring is not something that you see on other cards. For instance, when you watch Thunder Rosa, like, she looks like she's going to kill someone. Holly Dead, she may have killed some people. And La Rosa is just like a firecracker. So just to have these women who weren't necessarily what I saw growing up, like, I think that has meant more to me. To be able to see women who are like strong and slamming people and like these male characters, like, they have that same intensity and that same power. That in itself, like, it's okay to be this big brute. It's okay to get mad and stuff like that. Like, that has been more helpful than anything else, I think.
And Mission Pro, for those watching, if you're not aware of where Mission Pro is based, the headquarters pretty much are in Texas. And I noticed a Texan twang in your accent. So I'm assuming, are you also from Texas or from another part of the South?
Yeah, I'm from Dallas, but born and raised Texas.
Yes.
It comes out when I'm passionate.
Well, we love that you're being passionate here. You know, I'm all for hearing the different accents. I love that. And, you know, when it comes to Texas, what I've personally seen is that, and even just in the South in general, there's such a boom of wrestling happening in the South, in Texas. You know, did you think that you would ever be at this part of your life where you're a wrestler and everything seems to be happening and concentrated in the South and in Texas versus, you know, other parts of the country at this moment in time?
No, I never even imagined this for my life growing up. Like that was me, a wrestler, that never even occurred to me until like a little bit later in life. But it is wild, and I'm glad that I'm at the epicenter because there are a ton of independent wrestling shows, of course, Mission being one of the best, but there are a ton of them. So it is wild because like you grow up and like you try and like look for things or whatever. Because honestly, I didn't know independent wrestling was a thing until I really got started. Like if you're not in the knowing, you think like, oh, it's WWE, like that's the end all. So you're like, Florida, that's where we need to be. But I think Texas has definitely changed the game. Everything is bigger in Texas. That's not a lot. Like it's not an opinion. It's a fact. It's a fact. And I think Mission being based here just kind of really solidifies that. So I think we're slowly taking over the independent wrestling game, and a lot of amazing talent has come from here.
I love that. I love the whole everything is bigger. I mean, I haven't been to Texas yet. That will I know. And I'm mad at myself for that because I've heard from the barbecue to the wrestling to the heat, like I can't look, it'll happen. I'll be there in 2022. But it just, it seems like a very special place, particularly for wrestling. And a lot of wrestlers such as yourself are coming from Texas and really making a name for yourself on an international platform. Once things settle down with the pandemic and all of that going into 2022, do you see yourself going abroad to do any wrestling shows or to go ahead and go forth and work with any promotions?
Yeah, I would love to. Now that travel restrictions are still like working on opening up, I would love to go overseas. First stop, I would love to go to Australia, but obviously like Japan and UK and stuff like that are definitely options. But for some reason, Australia has just always been the one in my mind.
Wow, why is that?
Because I want to meet a Hemsworth. But
who doesn't? Who does not, Maddie?
I'm thinking maybe there might be a long lost twin or like a Liam on the beach. I don't know.
You might be right about that because there is, from what I understand, a third Hemsworth that just seemed to pop out of nowhere that no one knew about. So maybe there's a fourth and a fifth and a cousin.
Or a long lost cousin, you know? Exactly. I can wait for that.
Exactly. And there's so many wonderful Australian wrestlers that have seemed to emerge, you know, in the past few years. You know, you have the Inspiration and Rhea Ripley and so many wonderful female wrestlers from, you know, Australia. So I'm here for that. I'm here for Maddie taking a trip to Australia, meeting her Hemsworth, doing some shows, coming back and living to tell the tales.
Yeah. I know, that's the key, living to tell the tales. I heard they got like big spiders.
Yeah, and that's not for me. So, good luck to you.
I'll be on the first plane out.
Right. You know, one thing that I think many of your fans can attest to is that you seem to have such an exuberant spirit, very lively, very fun. I mean, when I was watching certain episodes of All Elite Wrestling and seeing you, even just in the crowds when you weren't in the ring cheering, always having, you know, your game face on, and really just when something crazy would happen, we would hear you, you know, sometimes the only person just, you know, screaming, and I'd be like, that's Maddie. I love it. I love that. We love that about you, you know. I'm wondering, what do you like to do for fun outside of wrestling?
I like to eat.
Yeah. Fair enough. Coming from Texas, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely learned at an early age, eat. And in my family of like 6, if you didn't eat, then like if you didn't hurry up and eat, I should say, like, there's not a chance that you're getting food. It was a battle.
Wow. Is there anyone besides your brother, any of your other siblings who have really just latched on to the idea of you being a pro wrestler and have shown that they're all for it?
Yeah, I mean, all of my family is super supportive. My other sisters are very supportive. They come to my shows. My eldest sister, even from New York, has helped me a little bit with like branding. Because, them New Yorkers, everything has to be pretty. So yeah, everyone's always been super supportive, and I'm thankful for that. They've all gone to shows. That first Mission Pro show, all of them were there. My sister flew in for that. So it's been very nice. And of course, now that I have like that big family, like all my cousins and everything, like that's everyone bought a shirt. So like that was nice for me. And
absolutely.
So I definitely have like a good word of mouth spread right here. So
yes, and it's nice to have that support, right? Especially with the holidays coming up, and we got Thanksgiving. By the time this comes out, Thanksgiving will have already been over. Perhaps, for some, it's still going. Food is food, right?
As long as there's food left.
Exactly. And keeping on the topic of food, what is your favorite holiday meal, or should I say holiday cheat meal if you have any?
I mean, my favorite holiday cheat meal? I like 4th of July because I like barbecue. I like that kind of food the best, but I'm definitely looking forward to Thanksgiving. I think what I'm looking forward to most on Thanksgiving is this pie my mom makes. Well, it's not even like a pie. I don't even know what it is. But we used to call it better than recess, like the thing you did in elementary school, because it was so good. It was better than recess, and we loved recess. But I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like heaven. So.
Recess. That sounds.
I mean, it was originally, called Better Than Sex, but we were children, so she changed it to Better Than Recess. You got to know your audience. And I was like, better than recess? No way. And it was.
That's really cool. She needs to brand that and copyright it. Because I don't know, that in and of itself, that name is really cool. I like that. I hope no one steals it. But if they steal it, I mean, you could just put them in a headlock and it's a wrap. So, and we were talking about your gear earlier. I mean, it's fantastic. Your gear, it stands out. It's really flashy. It's really sparkly. It really says everything it needs to say about you. But for someone that has never seen a match of yours, how would you describe who you are as a wrestler? If you had someone coming up to you and saying, why should I watch a Madi Wrenkowski match?
Well, I'm just kidding. Good question. Why should we? No, I think that for me, who I am in the ring is basically an extension of who I am in real life. And I know that's a cliche answer, but I think it's a real answer, so to speak. At Mission Pro, some people have noted that I'm more lighthearted when I'm there. And again, I think maybe that has something to do with the locker room there. I really respect the people there. I respect my opponents 9 times out of 10, unless you're like Jasmine Allure, then I don't. But and then at other promotions, sometimes you just don't like your opponents. So I don't always have the best attitude when I'm there. And that's like life. In your workplace, there's people you like. You have work best friends, and they're amazing. And then there's like those people, and you're like, ugh, so-and-so's here today. And it's just kind of how I live my life. I can be nice, and then other times I'll do whatever I have to do to win.
That's very interesting too, because one thing, and I'll definitely pose this to you because it's probably the first time I've asked this question. Do you feel that there is added pressure to always be nice? Like, because you're such a public figure, do you feel that for the sake of fans and for the sake of, say, social media, you find yourself thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't say this, maybe I shouldn't do that? Or are you just like, it is what it is. I am who I am, and this is what you're going to get?
Yeah, it would definitely have to be the latter. Just because a couple of my influences with my moniker, Miss Reality, come from a very like brash background. That being said, the Miss Reality thing came from like real, obviously. And some of the realest ones, I would have to start off with Eddie Kingston. My first seminar ever when I entered the wrestling business was an Eddie Kingston seminar. And what I took away from it the most was that in this business, you have to be real. Being real and genuine and authentic is what's going to get you far in this business. If you're playing a part, or you don't believe in what you're doing, or you don't believe in what you're saying, and that goes in life as well. If you don't actually believe the words that are coming out of your mouth, no one else is going to believe them. So I think I took that. And then the person, because like high school, middle school, whatever, I became too cool for wrestling, So what kind of pulled me back into it was my brother took me to it was NXT's like Texas tour. We went in Austin, and that was the first time ever I had ever seen Enzo Amore and Big Cass. And the way they just commanded the audience, like as soon as they walked out, like the whole like room was repeating the whole, my name is Enzo Amore. And so that kind of drew me back into wrestling, just the power that he had with his entrance. And he is the real one, the realest guy in the room. How are you doing? And so that kind of, those two are probably the staple of the Miss Reality. Like Enzo is who he is. He says what he's going to say. That's kind of how I live my life. I've always lived my life. Like my dad was always the one saying, if someone hits you, you hit them back harder. Like if you have something to say it, deal with the consequences later. So I do that. I do that with my promos and whatnot. And if I get my butt kicked, I get my butt kicked that day. But then I'll be back for more if I still feel that way.
And if you're going to take advice from any person, especially when it comes to promos, I mean, Eddie Kingston is at the top of the heap. And in recent weeks, we've read that article that he had.
Yeah.
It's just reading that alone. It's just amazing seeing the journey that he's gone from his humble beginnings in New York to AEW, and to be able to, I mean, did you speak to him at all during that seminar, or was it something where it was like, oh, I'm just going to take everything in and then go about my way? How was that seminar for you?
It was incredible. Honestly, with that seminar because at that point I was maybe like a week into like in-ring stuff. And he is the first and the only person that I've ever seen take an interest in the beginners. Like he sat there and watched us do forward rolls, like the first thing he learned in wrestling, like the only thing I knew at that time. Like he actually took an interest in that. And he even like pulled me aside and was like, being a female in this business, it can be really crummy sometimes. And yes, I'm cleaning up the language. He was like, but you just have to stay on the path. Like, don't let some bozo try and like take advantage of you. Don't let promoters take advantage of you just because you're a female. Like, know your worth. And it's cool because there's actually a picture in the seminar where he's like, I'm standing on the ground. He's like through the ring, like telling me this. And like, I know it was such a special moment because like, I would just look at the photo and I remember the words he said to me. And then I was fortunate enough when I did come to AEW, it was right after like his Cody match. And so he was still in the back, like he was in the backstage area. So every single time I was able to talk to him there. And of course I was like, hello, like you were my first seminar ever. And he was like, oh yeah. I mean, I don't know if you remember me, but of course now he does. So it's incredible. He is one of those human beings that'll sit down and talk to you no matter what. He's very good at reading people. So like on the days where I was like so nervous that I was going to like poop my pants, He'd be like, "You okay?" And then he just makes you laugh because that's like who he is. Like
100%, 100%. That's really cool. I mean, you're basically meeting people that you've watched on TV and that you've heard of, and just it's a dream come true for Madi Wrenkowski. So having said that, what do you want to accomplish in 2022?
In 2022, I mean, it would be nice to, get signed by somewhere, but right now I want to like with everything that has been going on in the wrestling universe. I don't want to say it's seeming more and more bleak, but I definitely at least just want to get my name out there more, get more opportunities. A couple weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to get a shot at the NWA title with Camille. And then a couple weeks ago, again, I got to go against Holidead. So I'm very excited to work these people who have some notoriety in the business and, just learn more because I definitely don't know anything in the grand scheme of things.
Mentioning bleak, I get what you're saying. You want to be positive. Like you said, we don't know what's going to happen, but it is certain that things are in flux. There's a lot of moving parts. Things are changing on an even more rapid pace than perhaps it was at the start of the pandemic, right? So getting even more deeper into that and seeing all of the different changes from Ring of Honor to what's happening with Impact and everything going on at WWE, what are your thoughts about that? Do you feel like going into 2022, and not just for yourself, but for all wrestlers, that it's going to be even harder to find certain spots? Or do you think that this is the time where your entrepreneurial skills can really kick in and you can craft your career to exactly how you want it to be?
I mean, definitely first thought was like, crap. Because Ring of Honor just revamped their women's division. Impact was doing the same. NWA was doing the same. I'm like, yeah, it's a great time to be a woman. There's opportunities everywhere. And then it's just like, boom, WWE starts releasing people. Boom, ROH is taking a hiatus. And it's just like hit after hit. And I'm like, all of these people who have been in this high position, more people know their name. They're the ones who are probably going to sell the tickets on the independent wrestling scene because these people know their names. Like, I'm not necessarily like a name like some of them. And so I think initially it's going to be a little bit tough at the beginning. But obviously Eddie Kingston is a testament to that. Sometimes you just got to push through for that light at the end of the tunnel. So I think coming up, if these people who had those high positions, if they're still interested in wrestling and they still want to wrestle on the independents, it'll be a very saturated environment, especially for dudes. Good luck. For females, I definitely think obviously there's not as many of us, but I definitely think that maybe at least I'll get some really good matches out of it because these women have learned from some of the best, especially some of the mentors that they did have in the Performance Center. So I'm excited to maybe at least get some good matches out of that, and hopefully not even so much my entrepreneurial skills, but hopefully my presence and my in-ring workability can kind of push past them. Maybe.
Yes. Well, you have your whole family to help, from the branding to the gear to the marketing. I think you have an advantage that a lot of people don't when it comes to just having that internal system to help you along your way, which is really fantastic. And you also have Mission Pro. Mission Pro Wrestling is really becoming in its own since its inception in 2019. Now we're entering into 2022, and just look at the journey that Mission Pro has gone through and all of the changes for the better. Oh, yes.
Oh, no. So I was just agreeing with you.
Oh, you're like, I agree with you.
Yes.
Thank you. Going into the December 11th show, which is the penultimate show of the year. And a lot of things have taken place in this whole entire year of 2021 with Mission Pro. What can we expect to see heading into the new year with the promotion? If there's anything that you can foretell or without giving anything away, spoiling us, so to speak, that you want to hear?
I don't really know. To be honest, sometimes I'm just along for the ride. But I know that Mission Pro is constantly expanding. It's nice to see, like, we have banners on the wall of every show, and just to see like the sponsors grow. So it's nice because people believe in what we're doing. And so if people like who haven't seen Mission Pro start watching, like, you're drawn in because you don't see the same thing. So if people just keep on believing in us and keep supporting it, I know it's getting bigger because you see girls on Mission Pro, like some of the girls they bring on, like, I've never seen before. So they're not just like helping Texas girls or the same girls, they're bringing in new people, which I think is going to be exciting. I know they're already done some out of state like shows, but I definitely know there's more coming in the future. Mission Pro is going on the road. And of course, none of that would be possible without our sponsors. So we just got to keep putting on really amazing shows, keep having people believe in us. And then I think from there, like, I think Mission Pro by the end of 2022 is probably, without a doubt, actually not probably, without a doubt, going to be the biggest female promotion out there.
And, without a doubt, we feel that you're going to be one of the biggest female wrestlers out there. You've done so much in your short span of a career so far, and it's only going to get better from this point forward. So thank you, Madi. Thank you for sharing your time and your talents and everything that you bring to wrestling. You're very welcome. On that note, also, thank you for stopping by. Is there anything you want to add? Any last messages, especially to any opponents? I know you shouted out Jasmine Allure, so we know that there's something going on.
Yeah, I'll just leave that one at that because, like, I don't want to give her any more press. I basically built her career, Yeah, so we don't want to do that anymore.
Fair enough. I get it, and on the off chance that I interview Jasmine, well, I'm sure she'll have some things to say also. So
yeah, no, just let her know that I said you're welcome. Because I basically built her career. She wouldn't be who she is, especially in Mission Pro, if she wouldn't have cost me my title shot. So, yeah. So just let her know I said you're welcome.
On that note, everyone watching, thank you once again for tuning into another episode of FaceTurn with Candace Cordelia. I am Candace Cordelia here with Madi Wrenkowski. Check out her matches. You have YouTube. You can go back, press rewind, see everything that she's done with All Elite Wrestling, but also especially with Mission Pro Wrestling. And thank you for supporting Mission Pro and Mission Pro Week. Check out their show December 11th. You can watch it online, or, if you're there in Texas, check it out as well live. Either way, you can't miss what's going to be an amazing event. Once again, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.